Good evening and welcome to the Conversation Tree. I'm your host, Stanton Gomes. And under the Conversation Tree is where we will learn together, share ideas, and be inspired by the work of others. And we want you to be involved as well. So feel free to use the comments below and ask questions. And if you have a story to tell, we would like you to be on the show. So contact us. Tonight, we will be speaking with Juanita Headley, a UK born international speaker, licensed New York attorney, and the founder and CEO of Changing Cases, an organization. And we'll be speaking tonight about human trafficking, child abuse, sexual abuse, and we'll go into the signs of abuse and disclosures of abuse. So since 2012, Miss Headley has been spending periods of about 6 months volunteering unpaid in the United States, serving in the indigent community in matters of crime, immigration, family, employment, and housing law. In her current capacity, Ms. Headley gives human trafficking talks to audiences of 800 plus, which includes the army, police officers, students, etc. And without any further wait, we'll bring on Ms. Juanita Headley, who is backstage. Good night, Ms. Headley.
Good night. Thank you so much for having me.
We had a little break there. Yeah, so welcome to the Conversation Tree, Miss Headley. Let's go right into your previous years before we get into anything else. You were raised in London. However, you're in St. Vincent and the Grenadines now. Tell me about your education. You understand that you wanted to be you did your studies to be a chef, but end up doing law. Just give us a little background on that.
Certainly. I actually left school when I was 15. And because I was in the foundation group, I received D and E grades after taking my examinations. Despite that, I didn't allow that to deter me from pursuing my career. I dreamed of becoming a chef. I'm very passionate about food. And so I did a couple of years in the UK studying catering, hospitality, pastry courses. And then when I was 17, I went overseas to Switzerland and I studied in an international hospitality school. Whilst at school, I was able to learn French. I'm not fluent, unfortunately, but I learned French. And I learned a lot of things about hospitality, hotels, rooms division, everything you need to know if you desire to go into opening your own business establishment, whether that's a hotel, a restaurant. So therefore, after studying that and working in the United Nations in Switzerland, I decided I wanted to become a crime scene investigator, which is so far from being a chef, but I was a huge CSI Vegas fan. I wanted to become like Gil Grissom, but I got to point out, William Peterson is his real name. I had no desire to change my gender whatsoever, but I wanted to be a crime scene investigator. After studying for 2 years, I came back to the United Kingdom and I did a year of maths and science at university. I got an A in maths, which was pretty amazing considering I left with failing grades at school and I did 4 years of cooking, but my mother had privately tutored me during school. So therefore, when I got the A in maths, I believe I was always an A. After that, I did a year of forensic science, which I found incredibly boring. Dusting for fingerprints is not as fun as it looks to be. And there were no handsome men as well. So it was nothing like the movie. And then after that, I did a year of police studies, which was really boring. And then I did 3 years of law, which was really, really boring. Like seriously, it was. And after doing the 3 years of law, I decided I wanted to become a California lawyer. I have a huge love for California, the beaches, the weather. And so I decided to become a US lawyer. I took the New York bar exam with the intention of taking the California bar after. But having failed the New York bar twice, I decided, considering the New York bar is the second hardest exam in the country, I don't think I want to take the California bar, which was the first hardest exam. So finally, on my third attempt, I was praying, and as a born-again Christian, I prayed to God through Jesus Christ directly. And I said to him, if I do not pass my exams, I'll be a missionary. I passed my exams and I'm kind of a missionary. I've been a US attorney for 5 years, completely pro bono, which means unpaid. And quite simply, I don't have a work permit, a H-1B visa, US citizenship. So as a result of that, on my B1, B2 visa, I provide free legal advice to immigrants, illegal and otherwise, ex-convicts, and homeless people. So when I'm in New York, I provide free legal advice to those who cannot afford a lawyer. My desire, however, was to become a US paid lawyer and to make a difference to the lives of people in the United States. But unfortunately, due to logistics, that simply isn't possible on a long-term basis. So when I'm in the US, I give a couple days, a couple weeks of volunteer service, and then I leave.
All right. So tell me about your organization. You founded an organization, Changing, by the name of Changing Cases, and you've done a lot of work, um, in a lot of countries. Tell me a bit about this organization, when it started, and some of the work that you do, some of the services you offer.
Changing Cases is around 5 years old. It originally came out of my desire to do a lot of work in Asia, specifically the Philippines. And so around 5 years ago, I actually had a program in London, in Olympia, where I was actually selling cakes and fundraising for the purpose of raising money to go to the Philippines and to volunteer and serve. Changing Cases comes out of my heart to eradicate homelessness, exploitation, and poverty. I have a real heart for people. I'm a born-again Christian, and I do as best as I can to see people through the eyes of God. I believe in love in action. I believe in second chances. And so as a result of my heart and desire for helping people, my organization, as small as it is, I'm like the CEO, the founder, the secretary. I am everything. When I go to the Philippines, I fundraise and do a feeding program in North Manila Cemetery for those who live in the cemetery. I also educate and empower people on the topics of abuse and exploitation. And then beyond that, I also, whenever possible, donate not money, but in kind. So clothing, school materials. My desire is to simply make a difference to the lives of people around the world. And I believe that instead of giving a person a fish, that we should teach them to fish. And so for that reason, as best as I can, I will meet a person's need right then and there, but I want to do so much more. In fact, I desire to become fluent in Tagalog, which is Filipino, because I feel I can be a lot more effective in a country like the Philippines that is #1 for cyber sex trafficking, and where the age of sexual consent is 12, the youngest in the world. I have a huge heart for the Philippines, for India, and so whenever I go there, as much as I can, I support the indigent community. I volunteer in orphanages, in safe houses, in juvenile delinquent centers. I've even had the opportunity to teach juvenile delinquents, in other words, child criminals, how to bake, how to make cakes, cake pops. And that was amazing. I loved the experience. I loved the opportunity, because when I was with them, all I saw were human beings. And that's what I want people around the world to realize, that a person in prison, the only reason they're there is because they got caught. And prison is important in jail time to protect and safeguard us. But when they're released, they can indeed become a productive member of society. And my desire is to get people to be more open-minded. I don't want people to be robots and think like me, but to understand that everybody truly deserves a second chance, sometimes behind prison walls for the rest of their life, other times when they leave prison, a second chance to make a difference to the lives of people around them by being a productive member of society.
I know what some of the cases you saw there. What maybe was the worst case you saw in the Philippines, well, between Philippines and India? But what was something that would have really touched you?
I think the worst case for me is Daisy's destruction. Around 2011, Peter Scully left his wife and 2 children in Australia. He came to the Philippines and set up the No Limits Fund Company. Himself and his Filipino girlfriend, Lizel, would sexually abuse and torture these children. In fact, when Scully was arrested, there were dead bodies found under the floorboards. When I heard about Scully's case, that was around 2014, I believe. and I heard about the video called Daisy's Destruction. Now, when I heard about the video, my understanding was that Peter Scully and his girlfriend Liza sexually abused and tortured Daisy. And then what they did, they hung her upside down and dripped candle wax on her genitals. They beat her and tortured her to the point of death.
Wow.
Around 4 years after hearing about that case in the Philippines, I was reading an article about Daisy's destruction. And when I read the article, I remember just reading it at the bus stop in Washington, D.C. on the way to New York. And I just kept saying, Jesus, 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 because what I was reading, it broke my heart. It wasn't the court case document, it was a newspaper article. But just reading the small, infinite details about what she went through, it just messed with my head. It really did. And that is not the truth of all she's experienced. I've met lawyers and social workers and police who have been involved in that case. And I know on good authority that many of the people who viewed the video, Daisy's Destruction, they cried when they watched it. When I read the article, however, 4 years later, it became apparent to me that Daisy was not, in fact, dead. But for 4 years, I believe she had died. Daisy is not even her real name. She was 18 months old at the time of the offense, 18 months old. And because they recognized her accent, she was saying a sort of word, like, for example, she might have been saying, arai, arai. Arai, I believe, means stop. So she was saying a word that is recognizable as a dialect in a part of the Philippines. And that was how they were able to rescue her eventually. However, after reading that case and hearing about what she went through, it really spurred me on to do so much more. I've had dreams about working in organizations where they actually review child pornography. Now, I don't know if I could manage to do that because I'm sure that's a lot to deal with mentally, but I really wanted to do so much more. And I will say that having spoken to a lawyer who worked on Scully's case, that he expressed to me that Scully, who is currently in prison and recently got life imprisonment, he has special conditions such as air conditioning. He gets special privileges, special meals. I believe he had a cell phone as well that he was using to communicate with his girlfriend Liza. And the women from the jail next door come over and perform sex acts on him and with him. Liza was eventually arrested walking down the beach of Malapascua Island, where I was 2 summers ago. She was a sex tour guide at the time of her arrest. Now, in pictures, she looks very, very young. I believe she was about 31, or she's around 31 now, I believe. She was prostituted as a child. And I always explain there's no such thing as a child prostitute. She was prostituted. It was done to her. And that goes some way as to explain the why. Now, she was naked in these videos, Daisy's Destruction and the others, but they did forensic science to identify her. Her eyes were covered. They did forensic science to identify her. Now, when I hear about that case and when I read about the case, it tormented me, it saddens me, and I share that story all the time because Daisy, which is not her real name, she was so innocent. She was 18 months old, and the Philippines were so broken by that case that they wanted to bring back the death penalty. However, as has been explained to me by a fellow attorney, the death penalty goes forwards, not backwards. And so when Scully committed the crime, the death penalty was not in existence in the Philippines. They couldn't then erect the death penalty for a crime that was committed before. And for me, as a strong Christian, I categorically do not agree with the death penalty. In St. Vincent, I've been in the Kingstown prison and the Belle Isle prison. And when I've been there, I've met people who I see as human beings. I don't know their infractions. I don't know why they're there. I'm convinced that some of these people, if I'd met them on the outside, we could have been friends. There are some individuals in the prison, when I look at them, they just look like nice people. I don't know what led Scully to do what he did, but I believe that we as people need to stop judging and looking for a quick fix and get to the root cause of a person's behavior. Liza was sexually abusing children, torturing children, but she was prostituted as a child. She was a victim. That's not justifying, it's understanding. Maybe Scully was abused. I don't know that. The point is every person behaves a certain way because of a reason. The men in prison, the women in prison, maybe it's the wrong crowds. Maybe they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe it's their family upbringing, circumstance, poverty. I'm not making excuses, but I believe that people do things for a reason, and those reasons are not okay. And yes, justice should be served, but I think judging a person will not stop it from happening again if we can understand the roots of why Scully did that, the roots of why a father molests his child, then we can change the dynamics of the next generation. So things like that will stop happening in the future. The death penalty, yes, you'll get rid of Scully, but there'll be a new Scully. There'll be a new Daisy's destruction. We need to understand the behavior, then we can address it, and then the world will be a safer place.
And I guess your organization is currently working maybe along the line in addressing looking at issues like burden issues.
For me, I would say my focus right now is on education. There's only so much one person can do. And yes, changing cases is around 5 or so years old, but I am one person trying to make a world of difference. And I believe education is the tool. I don't want to develop a world of robots who think and act like me. My desire is to get people to be more open-minded. So when they hear what I have to say, they consider things differently. Judgmentalism will never stop rapes, abuse, murder. In fact, the first human trafficking story in the Bible was Joseph. He was labor trafficked by his brothers. When we can be educated, it changes the dynamics. As the Bible says, people perish for lack of knowledge. I don't have all the answers, but I know by understanding a situation, a behavior, then the dynamics can change. And that is why I quit my job 4 weeks ago and came here. I didn't come to St. Vincent to raise awareness. In my mind, awareness is like knowing and doing nothing. For example, if we look outside the window, we would say, it is dark outside. And anyone who hears that would say, I'm aware. For me, I quit my job 4 weeks ago, came to St. Vincent with a desire to educate and empower people because I want lives to be transformed. I want the world to be safer for everybody. Because any one of us, myself, yourself included, can be trafficked. And for me, because of my own personal experience, I want to do so much positive, despite my start in life. As the Bible says, what the enemy intends for evil, God intends for good. And so if I have to quit my job, sleep on floors, skip meals, live with strangers to do that, I will do that because I believe it's a calling on my life.
All right, we have a quick question here from Akila Hoss. She's asking, is the Philippines working on changing the age of consent? 12 years old is insane. Why have they not changed it already?
It's interesting that I was actually in a vehicle about a week ago, and that is where I heard on the news the age of consent is 12. And I said, this is interesting. I'm in St. Vincent. The news is on in the vehicle at a volume that I can hear. I'm not talking too much like I usually do. And I heard them say the age of consent in the Philippines is 12, the youngest in the world. I am convinced that was for me. No matter what anyone wants to say about the news or about St. Vincent, I'm convinced I was in that car for such a time to hear that information. Because although I've been going to the Philippines year after year after year, I hadn't even researched that. I wasn't even aware of that fact. Now I am. What I will tell you, 40% of tourists who come to the Philippines come to have sex either with women, lady boys, or children. 40% of tourists are sex tourists. And I want to go one step further. In the Philippines, we have a place called Angeles, Pampanga. In Angeles, that is where we have a street called Walking Street. That is where the lesbians are, the transgenders are, the ladyboys are, the homosexuals are, the prostitutes. It's a street where if you're a lesbian, you want to pay to have sex with another woman, you can. You want to have sex with a child, a ladyboy, a male or female, you can. Everything you want is there. It's like Sin City. That street is where you can pay to have sex with another human being. Male, female, transgender, ladyboy, meaning female from the waist up, male from the waist down. They take the female hormone pill to develop breasts. And some of these ladyboys, as we call them in Thailand, are so beautiful that I'm confused as to their gender. They actually have to tell me I'm a man. I'm like, are you sure? They're like, yes, I am. And what is interesting is recently, I don't remember how long ago, recently, let's say the last few years, an airport has been built in Angeles, Pampanga. Now, the question I have, why would you build an airport next to the red light district? Manila, the capital, with traffic is 3 to 4 hours away with traffic. Without traffic, 2 hours. There is an airport in Manila. Why would there be an airport built next to a street where you can purchase sex with kids, ladyboys, men and women? So ask yourself that question. I think that answers it right there and then. And if 40% of tourists go there for sex, again, ask yourself the question. I even heard recently of GFE, girlfriend experience. When I'm in the Philippines, I see individuals who look miserable, physically beautiful, look miserable with a guy 10, 20 years older. And now I know what that is. That is GFE. I just thought she was a prostitute going out for the day. No, probably not. Most likely, he purchased her for the week, for the month. GFE. They have a name for it, girlfriend experience.
Oh. Akila says, I would imagine that the pregnancy rate for teenage girls in the Philippines is quite high then.
What I will say is that there in the Philippines, number one, no divorce. If I remember correctly, don't quote me on this, it's been a while. I believe that abortions are illegal because it's a Catholic country. I believe that's right. Divorce is illegal. I believe abortion is illegal, not that I'm endorsing it. The issue we have in Angeles, Pampanga, we have a lot of children, half Filipino, half Australian, because an Australian man comes over for a week, a couple of days, has sex usually, but not always usually, with an underage girl or just a woman 10, 20 years younger. She sometimes intentionally gets herself pregnant because she thinks she'll keep him. That doesn't happen. He has his family in Australia. And so we don't necessarily have a teenage pregnancy issue per se. It exists, of course. We have a street children issue. This is when children are born and abandoned by their mother, abandoned by their father. We have 1-year-olds walking around on the streets by themselves. I don't agree with abortion. Hear me carefully. I don't agree with that. But what I'm saying to you, in the Philippines, strict Catholic country, we have these women getting pregnant, teenage moms outside of marriage, prostitutes trying to keep the guy. And then because the guy don't stick around, those children end up being abandoned, walking around. I've seen them, little kids walking around by themselves who become vulnerable for the sex predators. Because in the Philippines, we have individuals, men, women, boys and girls, sexually abusing children in front of a webcam for a white man in Australia, Korea, New Zealand, Japan, the US, UK. That is an issue. And when you go to the Philippines, you will see a child who looks black, who looks Australian. They're half Filipino, half the other ethnicity. But in my opinion, the other gene is so strong, they look black or Australian. And there's a documentary on YouTube about how we have these children who are all growing up, half Australian, do not know their fathers because their mothers were most likely prostitutes and were found in the red light district, purchased, get pregnant, abandon the kid, or the child grows up with them and has the same mindset of wanting to marry a foreigner and may end up in the red light district to try and be swept off their feet by a foreign man who may purchase her and buy her out of a brothel.
Wow. Juanita, let's go into human trafficking. For persons who probably are now hearing the term, what is human trafficking and what is the variations? Because I think a lot of persons when they hear human trafficking, they think about, what they see on TV with persons getting transported in a vehicle. But I think they have a lot of variations. What is human trafficking, and if you could go into some of the variations.
Most certainly, for me, whenever I define human trafficking, I do not use the legal term because I feel when I'm talking to laymen, that's going to go over your head. I simplify it like this. In my opinion, when you have men and women in sex, you have sex trafficking. When you have restaurants, businesses, and establishments, you have labor trafficking. When you have sick people, people with ailments, you have organ trafficking. In my opinion, human trafficking takes place everywhere in the world, including in St. Vincent, because trafficking is simply the exploitation of another human being. Let me give you an example. You could be born in St. Vincent, live in St. Vincent, and be trafficked in St. Vincent. If your mother or father is your pimp, you don't have to leave your bedroom to be trafficked. Trafficking does not require movement. Movement is a possibility. It is an option. It is not compulsory. Movies like Taken confuse the layman. Smuggling and trafficking are not the same. And I'll share a story of somebody I know personally. Now, there was a girl, she was 14 at the time, she got pregnant. When her son was born, after some years, she sexually abused her son. The son gets older, he has sex outside of marriage, gets his girlfriend pregnant, they give birth to a daughter who I know. That daughter is separated from the father for around 12 to 13 years. She reconciles with him. However, despite her excitement during the reconciliation, her father sexually abuses her. And she told me to protect and save her sister, she would offer herself to her father to be exploited sexually. She then returned to the Caribbean, where her grandmother is from. Her grandmother would get a lamp and would hold it over the granddaughter's private parts and inspect her private parts. But in fact, it was not an inspection. The grandmother was being sexually aroused by that. That's the 14-year-old I'm referring to, who's now the grandmother. She then sends the granddaughter down the street to Mr. X and tells her to go there and collect money. The granddaughter goes to Mr. X, who has sex with her, gives her money. That is sex trafficking. This little girl, the granddaughter, is so angry at God and her father, she tears up the Bible, places the Bible in her underwear. The Bible is removed by her aunts and her uncle, who also sexually abuse her. For those of us who know the Bible, that sounds like a generational curse. I know the granddaughter. She's much, much older than me, and I believe she's not a pedophile. She has dealt with a lot of trauma in her life, but I will tell you that she is a person who now knows and loves God and Jesus Christ as her Lord and Savior, but she still suffers with many of the effects of what she went through. I cannot imagine what that is like, to be abused sexually by your grandmother, your father, your aunts, and your uncle, and your grandma is pimping you out. Because we need to understand trafficking doesn't require a man with gold chains, with rings in his mouth or whatever. It don't require that. It could be a grandmother selling you to the man down the road. It could be your brother or sister in the Philippines selling you via webcam. That is cyber sex trafficking. So it does not require movement. If I sit in front of a webcam, I'm under 16, and I engage in sexual activity with myself or with another, that is child porn. And if somebody is watching that or somebody is helping me do that, that person is pimping me out, and that is cyber sex trafficking.
Oh, just recently, I was having a conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago, and we was talking about the same issue with a lot of cases of older men giving girls gifts and this sort of stuff, which stems from maybe poverty and this sort of stuff like that. What are some of the ways to combat human trafficking, sex trafficking?
I feel that education is really important, understanding what signs to look out for. In a place like New York, on the subway, there are signboards. If you see something, say something. I feel we have an obligation to be on high alert, because I read an article recently on Facebook of a young girl who spoke about being dropped. Now, when you hear about the term dropped, you're thinking about a package, drugs, illegal weapons, arms. You're thinking about that. And she said that her father would take her to the amusement park. She'd go in the restroom. And then a few minutes later, a guy would come in pretending to be looking for his daughter. And she'd go out hand in hand with him, eating a candy floss or an ice cream. Her father would drop her in the airport or drop her at the swimming pool. And then a few minutes later, a guy would come and pick her up. She was being sold for sex. And she said, we need to be on high alert, If you see something that's a little suspicious, then do something about it. Call the authorities, alert somebody in a position of power. Don't just see it and say, I think that could be trafficking. Because when we think about the reality of this little girl who's now in her, let's say, mid-20s, 30s, when we think about her being dropped in an airport at a swimming pool, an airport is a busy place, but nobody suspected that. She even said that her mother was sometimes involved. And that just messed with my head. I thought, really? Her mother was involved? Now, that doesn't surprise me, but it did bother me a little bit. Imagine your own biological mother is allowing you to be dropped by your father at an airport, at an amusement park, so you can be exchanging sex for money. That is messed up. And so I feel it's important that we talk about these types of things with the people around us. We have these conversations. If we're seeing something that is a bit amiss, we talk about it, we hash it out, and then we go and do the right thing, inform the authorities. Because the reality is it's so close to home. It's in our very own backyard. And even what you mentioned about the gifts, what you're describing there sounds to me like grooming. Grooming is one word: preparation. Preparation for school, preparation for sex. Grooming is when someone prepares you. They do nice things to you. I just had a Zoom meeting earlier this evening from 5 till 7:39. I was 9 minutes past my time. And someone shared about her husband who was grooming a student. And he actually said to her, I want to have sex with you. So it wasn't just doing the nice things. He was direct. And he said, these are my intentions with you. And so we need to understand there's nothing wrong with someone doing nice things to you, but what is the motive? When someone gives you a drop, it's interesting when I talk to students and ask who is a pimp, they say a conductor, the bus driver. I keep hearing that a lot, and it's a common theme. So my antenna is on the alert because, like someone told me, the conductor can tell you, don't worry about paying bus fare today. And that can go on systematically. Then the girl starts feeling she owes him. And if he makes advance, she may feel she is in debt to him because she was having free rides. So we have to listen. When the kids are telling me bus conductor, that's putting me on high alert. Because where's that coming from? Normally I hear parents, uncle, police officer, bus conductor. And I've heard about young girls getting dropped to school. And when they sit in the vehicle, they're raising up their skirt. And the driver may be uncomfortable with that. But he may sit and think she's trying it on with him. But for all we know, every other guy who dropped her to school, he had an expectation. So that becomes her normal. When we're judging her and calling her promiscuous, we shouldn't do that. Maybe that's her normal. It's been 6 months that I've been getting a drop by different guys, and they always expect something in return. So let me get this over with. We need to stop judging, and we need to take things back a step and try to understand the promiscuous behavior, the grooming. Good touch, bad touch conversation only does so much, and it only goes so far. That's not enough. A lot of kids have had the good touch, bad touch conversation, but we've never spoken about grooming with the children around us. So when they get groomed, they have no idea. And when a child is groomed or programmed, that child is going to be very difficult for them to open up because they're not realizing the grooming and the abuse is one and the same.
Right. So while we're on that, we could go right into child abuse, sexual abuse. What is considered sexual abuse, both for children and adults?
What I usually explain when I discuss child sexual abuse, and because I'm Christian, I have to keep it as child-friendly and age-appropriate and clean as possible. I don't go into all the details, but I simply say, touching a child over or under their clothing, obviously their private parts, that is sexual abuse. If you show a child pornography, that is sexual abuse. Rape and attempted rape is sexual abuse. And standing naked in front of a child is sexual abuse. Now, a lot of people in countries like the Caribbean don't want to hear that because the mothers, the aunts, grandparents walk around topless or with no clothes on. Now, I've been to India, and India is hot. And in India, we are fully covered to our ankles. So there is no excuse for walking around naked in a place that isn't even half as hot as India. The issue with the nudity of parents, it's not saying that the mom or the dad is the pedophile. The issue is When a parent is naked in front of their child, the child is sensitized, stroke desensitized to their nudity. And so when the child goes next door to uncle or auntie's house, the child is used to the nudity. So for you to protect your child, you shouldn't wash your son and daughter in the same bath. You should cover up yourself. There's even a story in the Bible, I believe it was Noah, when his sons uncovered his nakedness. When you are naked, it is a type of pornography. I know of a child who was 5, who was sexually abused by her cousin, who was 3 years old. Children have access to technology. Children play doctors and nurses. Children engage sexually with one another at a very, very young age, thanks to the internet. You have to think about what you're exposing them to. I heard of a boy who was 10 who was arrested by the police and he had raped a girl. I know of boys in the Caribbean who've been sexually abused by peers in school under the age of 10. This is an issue. You've got to understand it is not even just touching. If a child sees pornography, that is abuse. If a child hears sex going on, that is abuse. We often don't understand because, oh, well, it's a small house. That is not acceptable. Children emulate what they see. And it's also really important for parents to put clothing on their children, because I've seen little girls and boys, toddlers, pull down their skirt, pull down their pants, and they find it funny. I have never found that funny. The question I have in my head is, who else are they entertaining? Because I know for me and most of us who grew up with parents who had conversations with us, we were taught how to dress and undress in private. So when I see that, I'm asking myself, who else are they entertaining? Because I know for me, my mother is Jamaican, as is my father. I could never have done that. My mother would have got the rod. Those who are Christian talk about do not spare the rod. My mother would have made sure I don't do it again with a rod, with a slipper. There is no way I could ever have pulled down my underwear in public. And even when we dress children, I don't understand why I'm seeing toddlers, doesn't matter the country, in a skirt that's so short I see their diaper or their nappy. There is no reason for me to see a child's nappy unless they're being changed. Even we have children of 4 and 5 with skirt or dress on, it's a mini dress. When I do presentations, when I go to church, my skirt is below my knees, right? These little kids like to climb up on things and move about, and pedophiles can be female as well. Pedophiles are not just in the Catholic Church. We have pastors who are pedophiles from all denominations, from all religions. So when you're bringing in your child in that pretty dress, the dress is too short. People like to judge India. In India, the girls who go to school, that I went to an orphanage in Mumbai, the skirt is below their knees. They wear shorts under the skirt and the shorts are long. You understand? And they know how to sit proper. When I've been in schools here, the girls sit very inappropriately, very inappropriately. Why are they sitting like that? And the skirt is short. Even women sit inappropriately in church and these things. It's not right. It says in the Bible, train your children in the way they should go, and when they get older, they will not depart. When you behave that way, when you sexualize your children by giving them sexy underwear, when you have them winding up and stuff. I mean, in Trinidad, during Carnival, the kind of stuff that goes on there, what about the music they listen to? In the Philippines, I was in an orphanage. The girls would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and exercise. And the song they were exercising to, now this is a shelter for girls who were all sexually abused or raped. And they get up and exercise to a song about sex at the fireplace. That isn't appropriate. You've got to protect your children, because the reality is that when a child is sexually abused, it's not no stranger business. It's their brother. It's their cousin. I'm hearing stories all the time in St. Vincent, raped by my cousin, raped by my dad, raped by the guy in church, sexually abused by my uncle, sexually abused by my dad, and my mum knows is not doing nothing. This is too much. People know what it is, but they're turning a blind eye. Why? Because he's the breadwinner. That is not okay. Sexual abuse is a crime. When a person sexually abuses, they are a pedophile who deserves to go to prison. And even myself, I was a victim of sexual abuse from 4 to 10 by my mother's first husband. In the eyes of the law, LAW, justice was never served. My stepbrother died. And because I was groomed, I was abused in my sleep. Because I was groomed, when he died, I went to the funeral. I touched the body. I cried more than his own daughter. Yes, he had a daughter a year older than me. He tried to rape me for 6 years of my life. I cried more than anyone in the church. And I stood up and said I loved him. I didn't know that. He abused me. According to my family, he screwed up my life. One of the reasons why I have insomnia today as an adult is because I was abused in my sleep. And there's me crying and saying I love him. When a person has been abused or groomed, it messes with their head, their identity, trust issues. Most of us who've been abused, we don't even see what God created. We see an ugly person. We see a dirty person, a person who's stigmatized, shame, all of that. People don't understand it, but when you've been abused, it messes with your head and your identity. And sexual abuse is so closely linked to human trafficking. In the United States, 90% or more of prostitutes were sexually abused as a child. There are girls in the porn industry sexually abused as a child. I believe it is only the grace of God. I'm not promiscuous, a prostitute, a transgender, a homosexual. I am none of those. I'm a celibate Christian. But there are a lot of victim survivors who are destructive to their body because you know what? It was taken for free, so let me sell my body. It was taken for free, let me work in a Sexpresso cafe. When we're judging the woman on a street corner, we have no idea the abuse started when she was 7, when she was sold by her grandmother at 12 or 13. And that is the reality. Abuse and trafficking are so interlinked. And that's why I bring my message about sexual abuse prevention. Because if we can protect kids from abuse, we can protect them from sex trafficking.
What are some of the red flags for, because a child might be sexually abused by somebody outside the home? What are some of the red flags that parents could look for to determine if a child is experiencing abuse?
Well, what I would say with smaller children, they may have regressive behavior, sucking the thumb or wetting the bed. There are some children who've been abused and they don't even know it. I know of 2 girls who were abused. One of them had flashbacks. The other one was in a children's home. And the court case document said that she'd been sexually abused by her stepfather from 1 to 6 months old. I even heard of a case recently of a couple in Jamaica, a husband and wife. Every time the wife would go and take a shower, she'd leave the baby on the bed, but the baby's position would move. On one occasion, she left a crack in the door to see what was going on. And she discovered that her newborn baby was being sexually abused by the father. I've even heard of cases in St. Vincent of 2-year-olds and under with STDs. When a child or a young person has STDs, instead of judging them, we need to know where that STD came from. What about unintended pregnancy? When a girl is pregnant, people are judgmental without asking themselves mentally, who is the father? Because I heard of a girl in Trinidad, this girl, she was victimized by her father at 13 and 15. She got pregnant as a result of that. She's now an adult, still engaging in a sexual relationship with her father. Her children are grown up now, and they have no idea that their father is their grandfather. With older children now, the signs are different. Maybe low self-esteem, insecurity, running away from home. Maybe you may have a child who has issues with being around certain people. Promiscuity is one of them, possibly homosexuality. What about somebody cutting the wrists? Obesity, insomnia is another one. If there is a person who has sleep issues, we should not tell them to drink chamomile tea, Milo, or Horlicks. We should ask ourselves mentally why. I have sleep problems as a result of being abused. I've met many survivors who have sleep problems, who are abused in their sleep. Anger issues is a big one. What about a person excessively bathing, not bathing at all, wearing new jewelry, acting differently, multiple cell phones, mobile phone data that's unexplained? What you have to understand, children behave and respond differently. What about somebody who was very talkative and becomes reclusive? Or somebody who talks too much? At the end of the day, when a person's been abused, the signs are there. It's for you to understand that they're not just acting up in school. They're not just promiscuous because they like to have sex. It's because that's how they've been programmed. because I know of a boy who was actually sexually abused by his nanny. And as the Bible says, do not awaken love before it desires. So when he was coming to school and having sex at the back of the classrooms, people were judging him without realizing that the love had been awakened, so to speak. He was innocent. His innocence had been stolen by his nanny. He subsequently became promiscuous. And on the back of that, it's important for parents to have conversations with their children. I know of a girl age 7 who came to school and said, "Daddy is eating my cookie." I heard of another girl recently, about 2 days ago. She said to the teacher, "Daddy is licking my cookie." And the teacher said, "Tell him to lick his own cookie," without realizing that it was sexual abuse. Parents need to use the correct terminology, private parts. My mother had the conversation with me. Nobody should touch your private parts. I was still abused. Why? I was groomed. Good touch, bad touch, in my opinion, it is not enough. We need to have the grooming conversation. And beyond that, when you see different behaviors in a person, a child, a teenager, you've got to ask yourself mentally the question, why? When they want to run away from home, why? When they're afraid or they can't sleep, why? When they're promiscuous, why? You've got to get to the root cause. That's important.
Right. I think a common scenario is where a stepdad is abusing a child, but the mother doesn't want to believe it, or probably is in denial, or probably can't do better because he's the breadwinner for the home. What do you have to say to women in that situation?
I think for me, first and foremost, you need to protect your child, number one. As a strong Christian, I would say, because of my beliefs in God and Jesus Christ, when you do the right thing, the Bible doesn't lie. When you do the right thing, which is to call the police on the stepfather or the father, allow the police to investigate if it's true or false. When you protect and safeguard your child, as a Christian, I am convinced the Lord will not reward good for evil, in the sense of when you have done the right thing, I am convinced your needs will be met. Even for those who don't believe in God, there's something called karma. When you do good things happen. The reason the woman doesn't kick him out is because of fear. Even forget about God for a moment. When you do the right thing, I'm convinced, forget about God for a moment. For those who don't believe, there will be people who will actually support you. People from the community, people who hear about the case in the newspaper, on the news, they will support you. In the Philippines, some many years ago, there was a lady who actually would pay Filipino parents $40 a week to not sell their children. That is what she would do. And that is something that I think made sense in her time. Practically speaking, those parents should earn an honest living rather than being paid to do nothing. But the fact of the matter, she saw a need. There's a need for finances. This is what I'm going to do. Because at the end of the day, when you sweep it under the carpet, your child will grow up with dysfunctions. You're teaching them it's okay for the father or stepfather to have sex with me and my mother. And that is not okay. We need to stop being fearful of the unknown. Every country is different, but I'm convinced, whether or not you believe in God, that there will be people who will see how you've made the right decision and will support you financially, will support you with childcare, whatever your needs are. But because of fear, because of shame and stigma, because of how people will judge you, you're more concerned about your reputation than the fact that your daughter or son is being raped by your partner. And that's not okay.
Yeah, and this is a random question I want to ask you, a personal opinion. What do you think should be the minimum penalty for rape?
For me, because of my strong Christian beliefs, I believe that any person who commits a crime against a person, regardless of the crime, that they should be incarcerated. They should be put in prison. I feel that death penalty is not the solution at all. I feel, because of my faith in Jesus and John 3:16, death penalty is not acceptable. It is not agreeable under any circumstances. But I feel the best punishment is prison, jail time, I'll even go one step further and say isolation. That's what I will say, isolation. I don't believe in castration or any of that. Because realistically speaking, when a person commits a crime, let's say Peter Scully abuses Daisy, for all we know, Scully was sexually abused by his aunt and uncle, like this young lady I mentioned, by his father, by his grandmother, was pimped out. The point is, if we really look at a human being, we may look at their infractions, but if we look at them as a human being, as a person, and we rewind the clock, we would see that many of the people who commit heinous crimes, it is not because they wanted to or they desire to, it's because that is an innate thing within them. It is a desire that may have been placed there as a result of their experiences. In other words, if Scully's grandmother had abused him, father had abused him, aunt and uncle had abused him, and he was sold for sex, well, who should be incarcerated, Scully or the grandmother? At the end of the day, you're punishing the wrong person. It is not always the case, but for me, I believe in prison and jail time to safeguard people. I have been to the prisons in Kingstown and Bella, and when I went there, the prisoners were respectful. The prisoners were articulate, were educated. I saw people. I was blessed with prison bread. I ate it. I did not die. As it says in the Bible, you will take up deadly poison, it will not harm you. I have been given a prison bag. I have a beautiful bag that I carry with me everywhere. Some of the people who went in there have developed skills. At the end of the day, even if they never are released, they are able to make bread that can feed the inmates. I believe in second chances. And like I said, even if you were to give death penalty or castrate Scully, really, maybe he's not the right person because he may have been the victim. It could have been what he has experienced. Because there's a boy, he was around 1.5 when he was adopted by a married couple. They were German and Chinese Australian. They went to Russia and adopted him when he was around 1. They were a homosexual male married couple. They brought him back to Australia and would film him without his shirt on. They would film him around the house. By the time he was about 3, his 2 passports were covered with stamps. He was eventually rescued at the age of 7. But from 1.5 years old, he was always being filmed. He was being raped by his 2 dads and exchanged for sex in hotel rooms. If he does not get sufficient help, that is his normal. If he becomes a homosexual, if he becomes a pedophile, can you blame him? No, you can't. It is not always the case, but imagine that is his normal. The Bible says, train your children in the way they should go, and when they get older, they will not depart. If he has been trained for 7 years of his life to have sex with men, what is his normal? Who should really be incarcerated if he commits a crime when he's an adult? Him, the victim, or the 2 homosexual men who illegally bought him from Russia, sexually abused him for 7 years of his life and trafficked him? Who is the real criminal? That's the question.
Yeah, that's so true. So you have a book out. What was the name of the book?
Yeah, I have my book here. Can You Keep a Secret? And I also have my t-shirts as well. Can You Keep a Secret? That's my book and t-shirt. It's 70 EC, that's 70. Why is it so expensive? Because 60%, that's 60% of the profits will be used to build safe houses in the Philippines. My book shares my own personal story of being abused, but more than that, it helps parents and caregivers to know how to respond to disclosures of secrets, how to respond to the question, can you keep a secret? The correct response is yes with your mouth, and it depends with your head, so you can hear the secret. And I explain why. I sit here today as a survivor of abuse because when I asked the question, can you keep a secret? I got a no or an it depends, and that response is why the abuse continued. If I had got a yes to my secret, I would have disclosed, and I'm convinced my life would be very different to how it is today. So I want to provide people advice, tips, and guidance to protect their children, to protect siblings, nieces, and nephews from having to go through what I've been through. I'm not the first survivor and I will not be the last, but if we can be educated, then I believe that will change the dynamics when a disclosure is made, how to handle it, and how to safeguard and protect.
where can
I think I lost you. I think I've lost you.
yeah, we had an interruption there. So I was asking where can persons obtain a copy of your book?
My book is available at Games Book Center. As I shared, it's 70EC70, as are the t-shirts available from Games Book Center. And I'm here in the country. I'll be in Union Island on October 1. So if people know of places I can speak in the mainland and any of the other islands on this topic, they can reach out to me on my Facebook, which is Changing Cases, Changing CASES, or my local number, 454-1693. 454-1693. I'm available to speak on this topic. And on the back of that as well, I do want to share that I actually intend, Lord willing, to stay here forever. That would be great. But in all seriousness, my dream is to actually open bakeries around the world, including right here in St. Vincent, hiring former prostitutes, former homeless people, and ex-convicts. I believe in second chances. I believe in empowering people, not just with education, but with employment opportunities. When I can hire a pedophile, rapist, or murderer, that person will stop selling their daughter for sex, stop selling marijuana, stop robbing houses, stop thieving, stealing from people, because they've been empowered. Second chances. There are many people who leave prison, and because of what they've been through or because of their past experiences, no one wants to hire them. My dream is to hire people and give them a second chance. Yes, I may have been sexually abused by a pedophile. Would I hire my stepfather? I don't think so. He's deceased, so I can't answer that one. But I believe in empowering other people. And so besides the orphanage in the Philippines, which I want to build, I want to build bakeries so that I can really use my NGO, Changing Cases, to bring change, not just to the lives of survivors with my safe houses, but to the lives of perpetrators. Because as I said, if a person has been victimized, who is the real perpetrator? The pedophile or their parents who are pimping them out from the ages of 1.5 to 7?
Right, Juanita. You said you would be in Union Island on the 1st
October
of
1.
October.
Lord
And you
willing,
have
until October 16. That's the plan. For 16 days, I intend to be there. And my schedule is very open. So if people know of places to speak, I pray that they will reach out to me, 454-1693. I do not charge for what I do. It's an important message. And I am available. And I'll be back in the mainland. But I speak anywhere in the world. It's an important message.
all right. So what's next generally other than opening your bakery?
For me,
What's next
what's
for Juanita?
next?
Yeah.
I love the question. What's next? My desire is for the Lord to open doors for me so that I can stay here. For those who don't know, I was meant to have left on the 10th of September. And it's interesting because I was with a friend, and I'll just share my truck testimony with you guys. I was with a friend making a video. Now, normally when I'm in Trinidad, I spend a lot of time there and make a video, something like this. Hi, everyone. I'm here in Trinidad looking for places to speak on human trafficking. So we made a 10-minute video. And I said, I want to make a promotional video for St. Vincent. So this is what I did. Hi, everyone. I'm here in St. Vincent, and I need funding so that I can extend my flight. A truck went past. So I said, we'll have to do it again. Hi, everyone. I'm here in St. Vincent looking for opportunities to speak, but I need donations to extend my flight. A truck went past. And again, it was so noisy. I'm like, let's do it again. Hi, everyone. I'm here in St. Vincent looking for funding so I can extend my stay. A truck went past. I was like, you know what? I get it. 3 strikes and you're out. So this was me. Hi, everyone. I'm here in St. Vincent speaking on human trafficking. This is my number. The 4th truck went past so quietly we didn't hear it. Then I went back to the bookstore, which is like my hangout. I was on my phone checking my emails, and it said, and I quote, "We regret to inform you that AC 980 from St. Vincent to Toronto has been cancelled. I was flying from here to Toronto, Toronto to UK. And so I was like, no wonder I didn't need donations. So I'm still here. And I wanted to say that because people may think, oh, I was deceptive. And no, not at all. My flight was booked August 20, September 10th, so I could go home and get a paid job. But the Bible says, delight yourself in the Lord and he will grant your heart's desire. Normally, when I travel the world, people say to me, when you come back, when you come back, when you return, when you return. And then I came to St. Vincent and people said, personally, via WhatsApp, we don't want you to leave. We want you to stay. We want you to stay. We're praying you'll stay. And then I'm here. So God heard their prayer requests and I'm still here, hopefully forever. Just saying. Well, I want to die and meet Jesus one day, but I'm just saying. So I'm here and I'm praying that I can stay here. My dream is to open that bakery. So what's next? Dramatic pause. The future husband, that's important. But besides the future husband, my bakery, that is my dream. I love to speak. I want to speak full time, but I really want to open my bakery. I just want to employ people, empower people. I've been working 8 years unpaid, 5 years as an unpaid lawyer. I want to hire ex-convicts. I want to help the world. I just want to make a difference. So what is next? The bakery, so that I can empower people, give them an opportunity to make an honest living. And of course, besides the husband, which is important, if you pay attention, my dreams and desires are to help other people. Unpaid lawyer, giving away 60% of profits from my book and my t-shirts, wants to hire ex-convicts. I just want to change the world. But I need a team. So if someone wants to volunteer with me, I'll be grateful because I need help. It's a lot for one person. So yeah.
I have your number up, 4541693.
That's right.
I also have your email for persons who may want to contact you to
marry me. Joking only.
engage you in
you said engage in Jesus' name. Yes. Engage me. But no, really, I am around. So like I said, if people would love me to speak anywhere, please let me know. I don't charge, but I do appreciate donations because I can't survive on oxygen. I know I'm vegan and I don't eat much, but I'm human. So please, I speak for free, but I don't like to be taken advantage of. Donations are appreciated because I intend to leave St. Vincent eventually to go to Trinidad where I do ministry. That requires a flight ticket. So please, I speak anywhere for free, but I'm a person. So donations are appreciated. Whatever you give, it enables me to go to Trinidad and continue my work for free because that is my heart. I just love to help people. So please do support.
Do you think your time in St. Vincent was impactful? Made some impacts for the short time you were here?
I believe so. I'm convinced because the fact that I met people who actually said that they want me to stay, that speaks volumes. I went into prison. The prison guy with the 76 songs who sang a song to me and prayed for me in the prison. Even in the prison, they said, we want you to stay in our country because people are valuing the information that I give. And that's an amazing thing. It's not about, oh, you're a female, stay in the prison. No. They actually see the importance. And when I send my message via Zoom, WhatsApp, whatever, because I share through podcasts and different formats. So it's not just me speaking in a live forum. I use all different formats to get my message out there. People are being impacted. They tell me that. They tweet it to me, Facebook it to me. Lives are being changed. There are people in St. Vincent who have contacted me who are now getting counseling free of charge. Before I came to the islands, they were not being counseled. They were not getting supported. There are people who tell me their secrets for the first time ever. There are children reaching out to me about their abuse stories. So I know something is happening. If I go to a school or a church and I speak and nobody texts me, then I know I've done something wrong because I know when I go into a room of at least 3 females minimum, I know one of them has been abused sexually. I can guarantee it. So when I go into a room of 50 people, 100 people, if nobody texts me or WhatsApps me or comes up to me at the end and says I'm a victim too, something is wrong. But I know it's being impacted. I know that lives are being changed because people are telling me, they're reaching out to me. I'm getting invitations from people to speak and things like this. So I know that something is definitely happening because someone, which is me, I'm being used. It could be anybody. Someone is shining light into the darkness. And I feel although I have my story, I have to share my story to validate why I'm sleeping on floors and skipping meals and living with strangers. I have to validate I'm doing this from a sincere heart. It's sad, despite the work I've been doing for almost a decade, people slander me and gossip about me and rumors and the rest. I don't know what they say. They say bad things. I have no other intention than to educate and empower people. And it hurts me when people block me or don't invite me to speak or whatever, because they're not hurting me. They are disadvantaging the people. And at the end of the day, my message is consistent. I'm a person with flaws. I am so not perfect, but I have a good intention. And so when people try to sabotage my work and my ministry, that is not okay. There is no other person I've heard of or met or know of doing what I'm doing in St. Vincent, doing this work in Trinidad. So instead of people spreading rumors, they should come alongside and take the baton, because this is an issue. A country that has 2-year-olds with STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, needs to stop the rumors and slandering about me and get on board and start protecting these 2-year-olds. I am one person. I will not be here forever. Trinidad needs me. The Philippines needs me. India. We have a responsibility to protect our kids. It is not my responsibility. It is our responsibility. And we need to take on that baton and be unified. The pimps and traffickers are unified, but the Christians are so divided. Jealousy, envy, bitterness, slander, and all of that. We need to be united, because the pimps and traffickers and pedophiles, they are united and we are not. And that is not okay. But I say something and I say it clearly. The more people slander me, the more I will keep doing this. I promise you, the more they rub my name in the dirt in Trinidad, I'm going to keep going back. Because unfortunately, when you do good things, people will say bad things about you. That's just life. They did it to Jesus. The best person in the world, someone will say bad things. So the more people speak badly, the more I keep doing it. But instead of doing that, let's just work together. Let's just work together to make St. Vincent, Trinidad, Philippines, India, a safe place for every man, woman, boy, or girl from abuse, exploitation. That is my calling. That is my ministry. Imperfect, but trying to make a difference one person at a time.
I see Naz says she'll be excellent in the secondary school. So hopefully you could get to touch base with the secondary school here on Union Island while you're here.
I would love to. For me, I need the connections. I am just alone, me and the Holy Spirit. So if people have connections, it's a lot easier. They reach out to the school, the church, they do all the legwork. Remember, I'm alone. It's a lot of work for me. And if the person is in agreement for me to come, then you contact me and we make it happen. If I'm ringing and cold calling, not everyone knows who Miss Headley is. I've been doing this work for about a decade. A lot of people have no idea who I am. And when I call them up or WhatsApp them, it's cold calling. So if you think I'll be great, then please reach out to them. If you have a contact, organize it, organize a date, get back to me. Miss Headley, can you do the 12th of October? I'll say yes, no, and we work from there, because I'm available. I am willing, but I'm one person. I don't have a personal assistant. It's a lot of work. I am so drained and tired. I need support. I want to make a difference. I don't know everybody in St. Vincent. If you have connections, help me to make a difference, please. I'll be so grateful for that.
All right, Juanita. So this is where we would wrap up the show. Juanita will surely be in contact, and we'll see when you get to Union Island, of course.
Thank you. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity as well. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. And your website, I forgot to mention, your website is
changingcases.org.
So persons who, let me put it up on a banner so that persons could browse and follow up and see what's there. Changing cases that, or we see one more comment. Thank you for getting the message across. Bring awareness to the citizens of SVG.
You're very welcome. It's not awareness, by the way. It's education and empowerment. Awareness is knowing and doing nothing. I've quit my job to educate and empower people, not to raise awareness. Awareness is saying, I know she's being abused by her father and I'm not going to do nothing. I haven't given up everything for the sake of Christ to raise awareness. I have come to educate and empower. And I appreciate your kind comments and stuff. Thank you. It's encouraging. It's not easy work doing this. It really isn't easy. So I'm very encouraged by all that you say. So thank you for that. No matter how articulate I might come across, I'm human first, Christian second, and it's nice to be encouraged. So thank you. I'm glad for the platform and for all of you who've shared positive things. That does mean a lot. So thank you for doing that.
All right, Juanita. So this is where we would end the show, and we will certainly meet up in person.
Most definitely.
Thanks to the technology, we could meet virtually before we meet in person.
Yes. Thank you for having me so much.
Great.